I think it's actually been there for a very long time. Anyway, we've got another 14 minutes, and I would love to get some more debate going. So, come on. Have you not had enough coffee, pastries? Okay, gentlemen at the back there. Thank you very much.
Going through very sort of similar story to Sue, what you sort of talked through resonated very, very much. We've got Accenture at the moment doing a big digital transformation project. However, we are taking a similar route with a lot of APIs, a lot of ETL, a lot of data moving around. However, I'm just concerned that we're in a state where we've got a smoke and mirrors, we've got a beautiful digital project that's sitting on top of a bunch of legacy systems, and one day the whole house of cards is going to come crashing down because we've got, at the core, the really important systems that are not being touched. I just wonder if there's any sort of strategies that people have got for, how you actually go about, covering yourself in the future for your core business that isn't really being addressed as part of digital transformation.
Great question. I'm sorry, could you just say what your name again?
Yeah, it's Simon Hatchard from Golf Breaks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Super question.
So I'm happy to kick off in terms of what my approach to it is, and simplistically my approach is getting a clear architecture, and that's both I have an enterprise architect, but I also introduced a business architect role to try and really get some clarity over both how the different, and I do call them Lego bricks at work, my team find that fairly amusing, but how those connect to each other, how the business processes flow in. So we've got that clarity, and we're currently looking at integration technology, because we think for the future actually it's going to be much more about how we're able to integrate all the different components, where we master our data, all of that sort of thing, so that then actually if we swap that out, if that digital piece changes, if I change my core CRM system, things like that, it shouldn't upset the model because we've got that clarity.
I think it goes back to basics. Good question. In terms of what are you trying to achieve? That's the key thing for me. Accenture and all sorts of massive consultancies will help you do anything. But what are you really trying to achieve? That's the key thing for me. Going back to my previous point about your vision. So at GoCompare, in the last sort of 2 years, the IT vision was a massive architectural diagram. That's not a vision. That's how you actually get there, and that's how you implement the vision. So I'd be keen to understand a little more, if I could push back with a repeat question, what it is you're trying to achieve.
It's really kind of spurred by improving the customer journey. So it's a very kind of customer-focused change. So implementing Salesforce, building a customer portal, self-service, new phone system, omni-channel. There's a hell of a lot kind of going on in that respect, but underlying our business is a booking system and a pricing engine, and packaging, and all the kind of stuff that we use and the sales agents use on a day-to-day basis. And we're building sort of smoke and mirrors integration with Salesforce to expose quotes and build single customer views and push them out through the portal. But ultimately, the thing that's doing all the heavy lifting is something that's been in our business for 9 years. It's still unchanged. It's still classified as technical debt, and because we're building this kind of smoke and mirrors on top of it, the impetus is no longer with the business to actually change that system, because you've kind of reached the point where, as far as the customer's concerned, you're offering a good enough experience. But from an IT perspective, you look at that system and you see the risk. You see the fact that it's got a specific lifespan that it's reaching the end of, and that's kind of the state that I'm in now, where I really want to invest in that, but my resource and my budget is tied up in the kind of the innovation track.
So I if it's all right, I'll respond to that, because I think you're right to worry about that, because we look at kind of 3 areas of things you've got to innovate in. Core innovation, which is about looking after your basic day-to-day operational systems, and you can be innovative in that by continually tidying them up, removing that technical debt, and sellotaping a stickle brick to the back of the Lego tower actually might look pretty at first, but it will actually not serve you particularly well. So I think it's probably a mistake to just focus on the flashy front end, and you really ought to go back and fight that corner. You're doing the right thing. The options that you've got, are not always just go out and buy a new one at multi-million-pound price, because actually if you look at what the problems are, sometimes the core of the system, even very old systems that were built 20 odd years ago, you can strip back, because the actual record storage, the core management of what you're trying to do is still okay. It was just the way you built that flashy bit was not very, it's not very appropriate to today's technologies. So if you kind of start one piece at a time, taking out some of those components, you actually you could get to a much cleaner interface. But don't ignore the back end, or ignore the back end at your peril. I think you bring an interesting point out that actually doing some of the flashy stuff takes away the business benefit of fixing the problem at the back end, and it hides it and masks it, and that is something you ought to challenge.
Yeah, it's similar to Sue. I'm in a state where the digital transformation has come from outside of the IT team. I would have liked a little bit of time maybe to get some the house in order slightly before that began, but that is charging ahead, and you have no choice but to pedal as hard as you can to keep up. So all my resources is on API integrations and things like that at the moment. So it's a challenge, but I think the end result is we'll have a flashy front end, and then we'll have to focus on the back end afterwards, which is the wrong way around in my book.
You need to look at what internal capabilities you have in terms of team building, composition of teams, your delivery frameworks, how you're incurring technical debt. Are you using Scrum, Agile? Do you have architects? What sort of dev skills do you have? I would very much look at that, because that's what will give you sustainability. Not consultants are brilliant. They will really help you, providing you're good enough in the first place. Otherwise, you'll be left with something that you can't maintain.
And the only other thing I'll just, as we go to the next questioner, add in there is that what I found is to be really useful in this situation is if sometimes people drawing customer journey maps get a bit carried away with themselves, and they just focus on the immediate interaction that the customer has with different channels. The key is to look at each of those moments, those interaction points, and say, how are those actually fulfilled by existing capabilities in the organization? Because it's a chain. And so there is no gap between back and front office. They're all connected together. And if you really want to deliver a great customer experience, the chain can't be broken, because the chain is as strong as its weakest link. So by kind of blowing out the picture and showing how existing core systems really support different stages of the journey and being very explicit about that, it might be possible to gain a bit more understanding, at least for the broader agenda, maybe. Anyway, a gentleman here. Yeah.
Wolfgang Emmerich, Zurich Engineering. So we help people with digital transformation projects, and in fact, working with LV right now. And I have a comment to the previous point that was raised, and this is that an enterprise IT landscape is very similar to a house. And in the house has a certain lifetime, but different parts in the house have different lifespans. So the foundations and the shell of the house, and possibly the roof, have a much longer lifespan than the kitchen and the bathrooms that get updated and changed more frequently. And we need to accept that that is the same in enterprise IT systems, and we need to plan for that. And people often don't plan for that, and they, as part of a digital transformation that may have a lifespan of a year or two, think about have a need to renovate their entire legacy estate. And I think that is a flawed assumption that we need to get away from. And I entirely agree with Rod that there is very, very good reasons for keeping your legacy systems in place if they've been keeping record for 20 years very reliably. But what you change is the short-lived interaction with modern devices and new mobile channels and so on. I have a question for the panel also, and that is that it seems that we've been on this digital transformation journey for quite a while, and a lot of the low-hanging fruits have been picked. So we are now enabling customers routinely to self-service, and I wonder what the next innovations might be in digital.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. So is there anything you want to throw in there? You've got a crystal ball there in your pocket you want to have a quick look at?
No, very quick one, then 30 seconds is I think for insurance and possibly for some other services, we're going to a world of embedded products rather than direct products, where the things that we get used to buying and interacting with are the things that we get value from immediately, and insurance frankly isn't always one of those. It's something you have to do. So I can see a world coming where actually I don't particularly want to buy the insurance, but I want the insurance to come along with something else I interact with, or in a different way, from a digital interaction point, I don't want to go to an insurance site to do something. I want the insurance services brought to the thing that I do use, which might be my app for my Range Rover, or whatever car manufacturer has provided the app to the thing that I do value. You've got to bring your services to that rather than me go to your side, and I think that's a change I can see coming.
Reece?
Yeah, I think it's again. I don't have a magic ball here. I think in the next couple of years there'll be a bit more stabilization in terms of certainly with what we are doing, real-time decisioning, understanding who that person is at our front door and pulling certain levers to push them down a channel that will drive the ability to convert. I think in the next 4 to 7 to 10 years you'll see a lot more of artificial intelligence and machine learning come to the fore. We had an interesting conversation last night with a CTO from Kinetic around this area. So we've done a lot around machine learning in terms of POCs, and I think that will be dominating the next 5 to 10 years.
Sue, what's next on the agenda for you?
So it's partly getting better at this digital stuff. The customer expectations have got higher and higher, and I think in some places, I think it was referred to earlier as smoke and mirrors. It's sort of, you can make the front end look very nice, but there's actually still a lot of chaos at the back end. So sort of catching that up and joining the dots there. Also for us, we're investigating things like wearables and how those can be used to sort of add into what we do, whether it's a sports bracelet that can help track your training, how you progress in your sports events and support your sponsorship in that way, or on the health side where we've got people in trials, that sort of thing, using the capabilities, the sensors, that sorts of things to be able to get a more richness of information into that data. So I think it's going to be integrating all those new things.
Fantastic. So I think we're just about out of time. Just want to try and close by just wrapping all this up. It's interesting that going back since the dawn of time almost, we've talked about transformation being about people, process and technology. And actually, I promise I didn't plan it this way, but that's actually what we ended up talking about. So I want you to put your hands together, please, for our fantastic panel. Hopefully that's been a great stimulating start to the day, and I really hope you have a super rest of your day. Thanks very much for your time.